Hi, I'm Jack Daig, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to go from this, a box full of wood scraps left over from other projects, to something like this, which is a chaos bowl I completed about a month ago. I did not take any video or pictures while I was making this, so I'm going to be making another structure, but the process of cutting and piecing the wood together is the same. This process can also be used to make cutting boards or other wooden objects using your wood scraps. The process I'm going to describe in this video goes through 3 generations. I'll call them for convenience Gen 1, 2, 3. Gen 1 takes the scraps that you have, glues them end to end to prepare for the next step. Gen 2 then takes those sticks, cuts them at an angle, and then glues them together into even a wider piece to prepare for Gen 3. And this is much smaller pieces than Gen 1. Gen 3 then takes the Gen 2 product, slices it at an angle, and scrambles the pieces and puts them back together to then the final product for me is rings to make a bowl. Okay, so the first step in Gen 1 is to lay out some scrap pieces on your workbench to try to put together the first stick. I try to pick pieces that have similar width so that they have a chance of going together and not waste too much wood. Then I just kind of lay them out and see what works. Sander to get things to fit. This one looks pretty good. This edge doesn't look so good. This edge doesn't look so good. I'm going to cut clean edges on that just to make sure. So we'll move over to the chop saw. It helps to have a hold down clamp to be able to cut this without getting your fingers in the blade. That's a nice edge. Okay, back to the workbench. Okay, so this is the Gen 1 stick ready to be glued together. I'm going to use this glue clamp that I use as a straight edge to make sure it's relatively straight. You want it to be as straight as you can. We're going to disc sand afterwards, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I use Titebond Quick and Thick for these glue ups because you can clamp with your fingers, hold it for 10 or 15 seconds, and you don't have to put clamps on. I'm going to demonstrate my high-tech glue applicator. It can sense any imperfections in the wood and any sawdust in there. Of course, it's my finger. When I picked out these pieces, I was trying to go with the grain all in one direction. So the grain is all going the length of this. Experts say that you shouldn't have more than 1 inch in a bowl of opposing grain directions. I try to go even further than that. For this bowl, with as little as the pieces are, maybe it doesn't matter, but I'd rather not have it fall apart after all this work. So this whole process is not quick. It is a very lengthy process. Since you're using wood scraps, the wood is free, if you will. However, it's going to take more time than your average bowl or average anything that you want to make. You can actually glue these two pieces together beforehand, and it does make it a little easier to hold it together if you're just doing two pieces. Okay, so now the glue is applied. So now I just want to hold everything together for 10 or 15 seconds. These diagonal ones are being the hard ones as expected. So once it's held together for 10 or 15 seconds, you can go for 20 if you want. It generally will not come apart. And afterwards, I just look for tight joints. I've got a couple that don't look so good. So I'll squeeze them together a little more. Okay, so there's a Gen 1 stick put together. In this step, I'm going to show how to go from Gen 1 to Gen 2. I've got 3 Gen 1 sticks here, all about the same width, so I can mix and match pieces between them. And I'm going to go over to the chop saw and cut these down, and then I'll bring them back and show how to put them together. Before I can cut these on the chop saw, I need to get a good edge, have them be flat and have one edge be clean and straight so that it'll sit well on the fence so I get good angle cuts. So I'm going to disc sand 2 sides. Okay, in this step, I am going to cut these into small pieces at an angle. I suggest choose an angle and stick with it. You can switch from left to right, but I did actually move angles around on my chaos bowl when I did it, and it made it much harder to put the pieces back together again. So I'm going to use 20 degrees left and right to cut these into pieces. This is the edge that will be visible when you make a bowl out of thin material. If you're doing something thicker, like a cutting board, you may want to tilt the blade instead to make this the face. So that way when you glue the boards together, you can cut fatter strips. Okay, I'm going to start cutting. So that gets an interesting look by switching sometimes. And what we're trying to do is maximize the chaos. Okay, I'm focused on the board here because I can't get me and everything in, but the important action is going to happen right here. So you can see I've got the 3 Gen 1 sticks cut up. You can decide how big or small to cut them depending on how much chaos you want. The smaller you cut, obviously, the harder it is to put back together. But now I'm going to scramble and mix and match pieces between these 3 to try to maximize the chaos and create as much variety as I can. And again, I used the same angle, so it's easy to put them back together. So you get the idea. I'm not going to do them all, but I'll demonstrate the glue up with a few of the pieces. And again, I'm using my high-tech glue applicator. And you can choose whether to try to glue the whole stick together at once, which is a little harder, but more time efficient, or glue handfuls of them together and then glue those pieces back together with each other, which is a little bit easier. If I'm doing a lot of glue ups, I keep a wet washcloth close to me, which cleans better than a paper towel, but I'm just going to demonstrate a handful of these. One more. Well, I'm going to go 2 more because I put glue on both ends of that one. And the last one, I don't need glue on the other side, obviously. Okay, then grab a straight edge of some kind. And the same process of squeeze them together and keep them up against the straight edge for 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, that should do it. If you see any loose ones, you can grab those 2 pieces and squeeze them together, because sometimes you don't have a perfect fit, and that way you can squeeze them back together. Okay, so the 3 Gen 2 sticks that we were cutting up and gluing in the last video are together now. So we have to glue these 3 together, and to do that I need good edges on both sides, actually perfectly flat edges on both sides, which is going to be done on a disc sander. I'm not going to show that because I've already shown disc sanding, but I'll come back and show you after it's done. Okay, so I have disc sanded the 3 Gen 2 sticks, and they need to be glued together. I have checked the fit, looking for light through any of the edges, and everything looks good, so it's good tight fit. Now I'm going to glue it up. So I use Tight Bond 2 for joints where clamping is involved, and this one definitely will be clamped. I am liberal with glue use. When you compare all the time and energy and cost of wood, glue is a small piece of the puzzle, so I use plenty of it. Okay, I'm going to put the clamps on. This is the Gen 3 piece all glued together. It's ready to cut into segments for a ring. So first I gotta sand the back so it sits flat on the chop saw. Now I'm going to trim the end just so it sits flush against the fence. And it's not necessary to even get into all the grooves, you just want a flat surface. Using a scrap piece of wood, I'm just going to double check and make sure the thickness is right. Close enough. Okay, ready to cut into strips. Okay, I've got my table saw set up with my wedgie sled. I'm going for 16 segments on this particular configuration, which will give me a segment length of 0.91 inches. I've already got the stop block set to give me that, and all I got to do is cut segments. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you guys know how to make bowls. I'm not going to video the cutting the rest of the segments. Next piece will be putting it together on the table. Okay, these are the segments I cut out for the first ring, and it's just putting them together. Scramble the pieces if you get a better pattern. Again, we're trying to maximize chaos, which is why it's such a thin ring and such a small cut. That is intentional. After all the cutting and sanding, these are about 5/8 inch thick, the ultimate wall thickness of the, I'm really making a pencil holder for my office. Is only going to be 4.5 inches in diameter, and the wall thickness will be maybe 1/4 of an inch. So I've got plenty of wall thickness to deal with. All the joints look tight, so it's ready for glue up. I won't be showing that part. So hopefully you can use this process or some variant of it to make something beautiful out of your wood scraps. If you liked the video, please click like and please subscribe. I do plan to make more.